My jewelry magazines tell me there are more artists per capita in Mendocino County than any other county in the United States.
I'm doing the Studio Discovery Tour this year with a group of 40-some artists where we open our studios to the public.
And welcome to the Riley Studio.
Welcome to my studio.
Welcome to my studio. Welcome. Welcome to my showroom.
Hi there. Welcome to the Mooncatcher.
Hi.
Welcome to my studio.
How are you? Welcome to our studio.
So this is the kind of things we look for in the river. This stone was found in the river, just laying there. And you pick it up, all of a sudden it's got this face in it. And I move the stone around to find out the best scene that I'm going to find in the stone. In here we have a full-size stone that I've already decided where to cut. Drop saw, diamond blade. See the cut being made right here? This will probably take about 3 hours for it to go through. Say, why do we collect rocks? People naturally collect stones. I'm just a little bit exaggerated, and I collect lots of stones.
I try never to pressure myself to find the figure too quickly. I walk around this stone for days, if not several weeks, and eventually the abstraction will suggest part of the human form. I've taken what I call a bite out of the marble. In effect, I'm beginning to create an abstraction in this stone.
I've been studying tea ceremony for the last 15 years. So I've actually learned quite a bit about Japanese art from the teacher, Dr. Sato, Shozo Sato, who I study with. And I'm, one of the things I specialize in is making tea bowls and such. I think it's just the Japanese aesthetic, and I really like that.
There used to be a lot of rules for jewelry on how you made it. I always felt a little uncomfortable with that. I tried really hard to do that and had to, come to terms with the fact that I wasn't going to make jewelry the way I'd been used to making jewelry. That was a really good thing.
I had fallen in love with rag weaving. I've always been a sucker for nostalgia, and I couldn't ever throw away those special fabrics from my family. History from people you love was right there in the fabric, and that really has been my direction ever since about 1977.
What I love about watercolor is that it's active and it paints itself, essentially. I move the painting around while I'm painting to see what opportunities exist. My routine is to go running with my dogs every morning, and on those runs I usually pick something from the run that is going to inspire my painting.
Everything that I do is an unknown to a certain degree until it comes out of the kiln. I'm very pleased I only had one bare cracked piece. This process is exciting and actually joyful right now because everything came out. It's one of the things that's important about your impulse to have something beautiful around. I think that beauty feeds you.
I'm a self-taught glass artist. I was actually visiting my parents, and they have a farm in Sonoma County, and I was visiting them and looked out the window, and there was a woman in their barnyard, and she had on dust mask, bandana, gloves, raincoat, just, goggles, the whole thing, and in front of her was a huge piece of glass, and she was sandblasting. And when I saw her do that, it was, I want to do that.
I just figured this out the other day, so it's really exciting. First of all, I think there's a lot of glamour in our culture that masquerades as beauty. And glamour, the first effect that you get is the only effect you get. Whereas beauty is like an invitation for sort of like a dialogue. It's a window that opens. So with that in mind, a very inspirational guy named John O'Donohue, he was saying that natural beauty, you're only millimeters away from a quickening of the spirit. So I was thinking, well, that's what I'm trying to do, is to open that window and get to the quickening of the spirit.
In my career, I've spun just about everything you can imagine, and some of it pretty ridiculous. The lint out of the dryer, the little tufts of fiber out of the top of aspirin bottles, dog hair, cat hair, rabbit hair, llamas, yaks, but I always come back to wool. It's the most satisfactory thing that I've ever found. There's just something really earthy and organic about starting at the beginning.
We bought Millard Sheets home barking rocks, and this is Millard's studio. I feel very privileged to work in his beautiful studio, and I really feel that my job as an artist is to try in some small way to lift the spirit. A very well-known artist told me once that the world is made up of three types of artists: the reporter, the commentator, and the author. And I would love to be an author.
My process as an artist is I don't plan my paintings, so I go to a blank canvas and I just start painting. And I work the canvas and we just work together until I come to a point where it's getting close to being finished maybe. And then I'll stand back, look at it, critique it, tweak it, and work it, and then it's almost done. And we're going to see what happens.
I got my first camera when I was about 7, 8 years old. Banks for opening a new account gave you a premium. Could be a toaster, I think coffee maker, and in my case I chose a little Kodak Hawkeye camera, and I started taking pictures, and I was hooked at a very early age.
This is called playing in the mud. This one here is just a vase. A little candle holder. I was thinking about making it for Bones, but since they burned down, I don't think I'm going to make it for them. This is one of my teapots. It's getting wobbly. Try to perform in front of a camera and see what happens.
Paper has been one of my fascinations since I started studying art. In the 1970s, I saw an article about artists working with handmade paper. I was so excited, I said, I must learn to do this. I've made the paper pulp. I have artist pigments, and I beat them into the paper pulp, pigmented the paper. The majority of the piece is made of paper and metal. I also weave in textiles.
One of the things about my photography that is potentially different is that for some reason I know the composition I want when I look through the camera. One of the things about photography that's interesting is that when you take the picture, it's a moment in time, and that moment will never be the same again.
What inspires me is either maybe I might start with a particular bead, or I found that even sometimes I can wake up in the morning and I've got this pattern in my head. I really am interested in color and color combinations and shapes. The metal beads and the clasp need to go with the colors of the beads, and I'm thinking about all that harmony.
Ideas to me are very important. I mean, I want my work to have some content. I want it to say something. But when the content is kind of hard to take for people because it has to do with our time and maybe global warming or the shrinking habitat of big animals, then what I'm trying to do is have the technique, the finished product, be so beautiful that people are drawn in.
My experience has been that working with colors is a healing process, and that is really my focus. It's very therapeutic to paint. I'm interested in working with people who are wanting to work on themselves in some way or other. I like my work to go to therapists' offices and hospitals and places where people actually have a sense that their soul is moved or changed, or there's something about the colors in the painting that helps them.
If you paint exact of what you photograph, then you might as well take a photograph. But so you take a photograph, or you go out and do plein air and you do your version of whatever that was. It's like poetry. It pulls you in and it makes people enjoy whatever you're talking about. Well, that's the way painting is.
The process I work with is with Venetian plaster on a hollow core surface, and I have to have a structural canvas. Venetian plaster is a product similar to joint compound in looks, and it applies in a similar fashion, but it can be burnished and polished to a high finish, which is what I do with my particular paintings.
I'm an oil painter and encaustic painter. The encaustic painting, it's very similar to oil or acrylic painting. The medium is different because you're using melted wax. You can embed into the hot wax found objects, or I can use my monoprints that I've created and embed them into the wax as well, or handmade papers. I do a lot of monoprints, mono meaning one of a kind. And it's where you ink a plate and you print it on this large etching press.
So I'm going to grind a piece just so that you can see what I do. The face is a very popular inspirational point for people, and I had to think to myself, how am I going to render that? So the Asian face is something that I decided, yeah, that's where I'm going to use and show my work. So I do a lot of clasps with my face. Jewelers are all about their hammers, so I try not to bore people to death with too much talk of that, but I do very much enjoy a good hammer. You try not to include your fingers in this, otherwise you have to go to a manicurist and get your nails polished. Fast.
I'm a ceramic artist. I am called a hand builder, which means I don't work on the wheel. I will use this slab roller to ratchet down to get the thickness that I need. And I've got various tools that I can use. And say to myself, now where do I want to put this? You use this as an agent to make this more solid. So come on with me and we'll put it on the drying rack.
There was a program on TV and it was produced by this little old man who, it turns out later on, I found out that it was Ansel Adams. I've been using a digital camera for the past 12 years. And a lot of people, they ask me now, did you do anything to it? I says, yeah, I do it to all my photographs. Every time you turn around, there's something that's saying, hey, take my picture.
I've been a jeweler for over 30 37 years. What I enjoy doing is the unusual things. Did you see that? Okay, so we're going to throw it in the water now and see what we get. Doesn't it look like a dragon? When somebody gives me an idea of what they want, and that can be pretty challenging sometimes to create just exactly what they're looking for. When I do finish it and I give it to them, the look and amazement on their face that I did it is just incredible.
I've always been excited about colors. And another thing I love about glass is you never know quite how it's going to turn out. Even if you plan it all out, you have no idea what's going to come out of the kiln at times. And especially with dichroic glass, which is how the light bounces off the different colors.